Hey there, this is Patrick with Dallas Hockey Hangout, coming to you after a 2-1 loss by the Stars to the New York Islanders and the Matthew Schaefers. Dallas has lost 4 straight, and things are not great. But that said, it could be worse, right? This could be last year's debacle of headed into the regular season um, on what was a pretty bad note. Dallas has time to change these things, obviously. They ended the season on a 7-game losing streak with some pretty bad losses in there. So I don't think it's quite on that level where they currently stand, but it's obviously something they want to nip at the bud sooner than later because it is about to be that time for playoff positioning. So, or gearing up for the playoffs in Minnesota. And yeah, I mean, how should we view this team? It's as a team that's lost 4 straight, that looks to have lost its offensive punch, has lost its defense at times, and a team that's missing key players that as every loss grows, it seems clear that those are big misses for the Stars. And, I've mentioned it every game that they've been out, that they do look missed. But that said, if you think about just truly how the Stars view their forward lines and the dual combinations, duos of forwards, and I mean, essentially, you're missing one of your top duos and your top lines. So I think you're seeing now how that has trickled down into the third and fourth lines because now all of a sudden they're not getting maybe the same matchups they were getting. The top lines are squeezing their sticks a little tight right now. Definitely one of the worst advanced analytics games I've seen from Wyatt Johnston in a hot minute. He was the worst Stars forward statistically. And then the same goes for Miro Heiskanen. He, watching the game back and yeah, a lot of missed pass breakups. The goal by Horvat, he's not as gapped up as he normally is. And uh, I mean, look, these games are going to happen. He's playing the toughest competition out there. The Islanders are a playoff level team. Obviously, they've got some skill. And yeah, I was kind of lamenting doing that like preview for this Islanders game and that I didn't specifically mention Sorokin's name. But I mean, he's got to be a top 5 goalie in the league easily. He's obviously had some injury issues, but he just plays the position so well. He's so patient. He's so aggressive when he needs to be. Just never saw him swimming this game at all. So yeah, let's just launch into how should we be viewing this team. It's this team's floundering right now. They need a get right game, and unfortunately, there aren't really any of those easier games matchups coming up because all of the teams the Stars are playing coming up are teams fighting for their playoff lives and positioning, and it's not quite as set in the East as it is a little bit more so in the West. These games against Pittsburgh and Philadelphia coming up are going to be huge, I would imagine. Now, spoiler for upcoming schedule, but yeah, watching the Pittsburgh game yesterday, Crosby looked like non-contact injury and comes out of the game. So I think Dallas is going to catch a break not having to play him. But they still won in a shootout without him. So obviously Pittsburgh has some talent this year. But yeah, let's just jump into the game recap. Oettinger was great. I thought he had such a great bounce back game after that tough Devils loss. And well, I should say tough Devils period. I think maybe Casey officially got the loss for that one. That has me kind of curious. No, Casey took the loss for that New Jersey game. But yeah, I mean, Andre bounced back. He was really solid. He made so many great saves. It's just tough and teams seem to get to him early. I'm sure you've heard me mention a time or two, just that it seems like he gives up a goal early on in the shot process. So still something I'd want to see that change, but also what's he supposed to do about that goal? So, I mean, Horvat's inside the left circle, and that was his 30th of the year if you needed to know if he can shoot or not. And, he's over Jake's right shoulder, and I'm just not sure what you're supposed to do there. He's covering most of the net. Maybe you could have, kind of done that little up movement, but, largely he's it's about statistics. You're forcing the shooter to kind of have that perfect shot, and Horvat did. But yeah, just watching it back, it was a little surprising how off him Miro was. We know Miro can like close on players fast, but it just seemed like with a shooter like that, maybe would have expected Miro to be on him a little bit more quickly. So that was just a little surprising. And then, later in the game, he gets almost the exact same shot from from that left circle as like someone is like fighting with Niels, and Niels gets his stick caught up so he can't press up on Horvat, and Horvat rings it off the post. So like the guy can shoot. He's clearly got some accuracy, so that's not really one I would put on your overall. So Dallas did have a chance to even the game. Steele had that breakaway. He went low right pad under the stick. I was listening to the Islanders announcers characterize that as the nouveau location that players are trying to shoot at, and I thought it was interesting that, like, sometime soon I'll ask someone this question, but why wouldn't you shoot 5-hole there? Just generally speaking, with how the paths are orchestrated and them having to go down, them being the latest part of that pad to go down versus like, let's say in the middle of it where it seemed like Steele was shooting. So I'm not sure if he missed there or if that truly is the like nouveau, way to, to try and shoot on goalies. Every time I see a goal like that or a shot like that and it stopped, I just assumed they missed and that they were looking 5-hole. But, that's why I'm not a professional hockey player. So, um, Dallas had its chances in the first. They did have like a 2-on-1 with Duchesne and Adam Ernie, and Ernie's shot was relatively easy by Sorokin, but he makes a lot of things look relatively easy. It was a pretty even first period. Scoring chances for and against were even for both teams at 6. So, pretty even first period. Sure, Dallas, it was better than the first period against New Jersey. So from that standpoint, they are headed in the right direction. But yeah, Dallas to start the second period had its chances. They had that early power play. They had the Suzuki was called for slashing, and Duchesne, had a good chance in front, but he had the left pad of Sorokin right there. And again, he just makes all those saves look so easy and, reactionary. But, if you know how goalies do it, they definitely know where the puck is headed and or have that anticipation to be able to make those saves. So impressive. Dallas was 0 for 2 on the power play. And, when it's not clicking, you see a 2-1 loss. Like that's, if you tell me that Dallas's power play didn't score, I would say more likely than not they lost. Not saying that they can't win games when they don't score on the power play, but it's clear that's a big driver of their offense. And the sticklers of the hockey community, so to speak, would tell you that, if you have to rely on your power play, then are you a really good team? But Dallas can score at 5-on-5, so I'm not worried about that come playoff time. But that said, it does seem like in this little run here that they are struggling on the power play, or really just getting bested by some goalies. Like the goalies in this league are really good. So Sorokin was just outstanding. Leave a little teaser for you between him or Schaefer for first star. I think that's a good conversation to be had. So, well, yeah, later in the period, Horvat gets that shot off the post, like we had just mentioned, and it seemed like Dallas played it a little bit better. They got at least Niels knew to go to him. But yeah, I mean, that was a good play, I thought, by the Islanders to drop it to the oncoming Horvat and him to just get a shot off unattacked. But then, the Islanders hung with Dallas in the second. I think while it was Dallas's best period overall, I don't think that's saying a ton. The Islanders had their share of chances in the middle part of the frame. You had Pat Joe miss the net on a wide open net with Oettinger scrambling. Like Holmstrom's all alone in front as he's cutting to the net. They had lots of grade A chances, the Islanders did, in the second period. So that said, it was a tight game. I think is I don't think the Stars played great, but I do think 2-1 is indicative of how close the game was. That moment late in the second where Robo's driving on, I'm not sure, on the defender, but, he swaps the puck and is able to get it to Maverick board cutting in front. And of course, Sorokin makes another great save, but there's 5 seconds left in the period. It could have just, Robertson could have just loafed it. Obviously, the defender's trying to just turn and pin it on the boards, but I was really impressed that Robertson kept with it and is still trying to drive offense like till the final buzzer. And that's what Dallas needs. They're gonna really need that in the playoffs. That to the final buzzer type thing. They're gonna get a lot of fisticuffs. And yeah, this year in these last 10 games, I want to see Dallas rise to the occasion there. Um, it's still 0-2, 0-1 headed into the third, but the Islanders are that second goal was the crusher, just obviously given that Dallas lost 2-1, but to score so early in the third, and given how it seemed like Dallas was a force field around the net in the name of Sorokin, it just felt like when it got to 2-0, I wasn't feeling super optimistic that Dallas was going to be able to come back. It was a weird goal though on that shot by Schaefer. Smart kid, definitely playing older than he looks. I just can't believe he's 18. He's going to run away with that Calder Trophy. They may not even have a second or third place guy in that. I couldn't even tell you who the second or third place, Calder guys are. I'm looking forward to those discussions ramping up and being able to kind of dial in, because I love, watching new players and get a sense of who's running this league at a young age. The guys that come to mind though that are young and doing well, just like the Macklin Celebrinis of the world, the Leo Carlsons of the world, like these guys that are so young, Wyatt Johnston, obviously, these guys that are so young and seem to be already in their primes. And I mean, to feel like Schaefer's in his prime at 18 is scary for the East for sure. He was impressive, but yeah, that long shot just kind of bounces off Richie's skate in front while he's battling with Myers, who I thought played much better this game. So yeah, and then Andres forced to make a 10 bell save on McLean, and that's just another, similar to the stop by Sorokin on Duchesne in the first on the power play. But, Andres just reads that so well. He's got such great anticipation and lateral movement and quickness, and he's made a ton of great glove saves in his career. Those are the types of glove saves that kind of remind people, hey, like Jake's got it. He's got the juice. He played really well. So I think, honestly, I know it's a loss, but I'm very encouraged by Jake's play and to see him be able to bounce back. He's always been able to do that. Like, we're going to get into the playoffs and Dallas is probably going to lose a game, but, Jake's going to come right back in that next game. And he's always had that ability about him. So not surprised to see him play really well here, especially in like a relatively low event. It's relatively low shots in the 20s here, 26 shots against for the Stars and 25 for the Islanders. So, all things considered, relatively low event. And with Sorokin playing like he was, it made sense that Andre was going to step his game up. So, yeah, it was just a tough third period again for the Stars. Notice some more mirror errors, and, it's kind of a thing at this point. Like, to me, they got outplayed in the third against New York. They got outplayed in the third against New Jersey. They got outplayed in the third against Vegas. They got outplayed in the third against Minnesota. They got outplayed in the third against Colorado, but was able to hang on. They obviously got outplayed in the third against Utah. And even still, I think, against Detroit, they got outplayed because they were up 2-0 and gave up the 2 goals and had to win in an OT. So, like, to me, if you can just look at the schedule and I feel pretty confident looking at those games and remembering with a certain amount of certainty that they just are not finishing games. And I said last podcast, like, it's hard to win a game when you only have one good period. Now, the advanced stats suggest that it was, it's not as bad as it, well, no, it wasn't great, that's for sure. 11-5 scoring chances for and against, for the Islanders. So yeah, they just, like, with the game on the line, like, you'd expect them to play a little better. I'm not 1,000% or even 500%, 50% sure why Dallas is struggling in third periods lately. I do think that just comes with when you're trailing and you just have to exert all that extra energy to get back in the game, defensemen pinching, forwards taking that extra couple strides to finish their checks and try and drive turnovers. And, it's just not the same as when you're winning and you can just play defense, which Dallas does so well. They're so great about playing lockdown, low event defense. So when they trail, they're just not the best trailing team. And in the third, so they've had to pull their goalie the last few games. Was pleased to see at least they got one. But what a play by Harley to go, full belly and not only get the puck, but like get up and then take the puck into the zone, get it to Ben, who's able to get it to Duchesne, who, rips it in the top right corner, finally able to perforate Sorokin. But I mean, just as an aside, that would be, if I was an Islanders fan, I was really hoping for that. I would be hoping for that shutout for Sorokin just because of how great he is and that bolstering his confidence. So obviously a tough goal to give up for them to Duchesne. But, Dallas had its chances, not as many as I think they'd hoped. But I mean, you got a breakaway from Steele. You've got a 2-on-1 in the first period. Like Dallas had those chances there, and you got a couple power plays and they got chances there, but they weren't the grade A high quality stuff that we're kind of used to seeing from Dallas. And I think honestly, you're going to see once Rantanen comes back on that power play, you're just going to see how great he is below the goal line. And then now that you're able to fold him in and as the pieces cycle on that power play, I think you're going to see Rantanen get into positions to where he's going to be like Maestro out there and just dishing it out and just getting the puck in a better position to create some better scoring opportunities. I bet once he comes back into the lineup, I fully expect to see more wide open nets and getting the goalie moving and out of position. Same for defensemen. So, yeah, sure Stars fans are excited to get Mikko back. There's 10 games left in the regular season and no real timeline on Rope Hens, so hope that he gets a game or two in before the playoffs. Same for Foxa. Haven't seen overly accurate timelines on those two players, so Dallas definitely looked like they were without that offensive punch. And when you have kind of subpar games from your top defensive players and you don't convert on your power play, like, I mean, there are just so many key factors as to why Dallas lost this game. But also, I think they got Sorokin. So 3 stars, Sorokin, Schaefer. I'm going to put Andre in there. I know Islanders won the game, but I thought Andre was great. I thought, it's probably a much different game with him not on his game like that. So there's a positive to take away for the Stars. I thought they were better structured defensively. At least they were a little bit more liberal shooting the puck, but just not finding those like grade A chances and those tic-tac-toe plays. And they're not really cycling the best. I do feel like they're kind of struggling to get to the net. So I would hope to see more crashing the net moving forward. They do seem to have gotten away from those point shots as well. But again, like the other team's trying to stop all that stuff. So I'm sure like the players or coaches hearing those criticisms would be like, well, yeah, and then have all these reasons for why that didn't develop the way it did. But I mean, long story short, the Islanders have a great defensive system and scheme and kind of similar. They win games. If y'all saw the amount of 1-goal games both these teams win, they're top 5 teams in the league. I believe it was first and second as far as 1-goal wins, and then with New York being first and Dallas being second, but could have that wrong. But still, the top 5, and they both know how to play in low-scoring tight games. So, I mean, certainly it was like looking into a mirror most of the night for the Stars. So, yeah, 3 stars, Sorokin, Schaefer, Oettinger. I wanted to touch on Michael Bunting not being in the lineup. I was a little surprised. I saw the criticism, which I thought was fair, considering that Dallas gave up some assets. some assets to get him, and then, not even demote him to the fourth line. They just benched him. So it's a little surprising, but I also think if I had to bet, like my gut, maybe we'll hear Gulletson talk about it. Inevitably, I'm sure Bunting will come back in. I mean, especially against Pittsburgh. He's played for Pittsburgh, so I would imagine he'll be in that game. But I also expect Gulletson to say something of the sort of, hey, he's kind of new to the team. We wanted to get him, just a break to kind of see things from a wide angle. And I won't be surprised to see him come back and make an impact. I think his impact is it's been tough to see so far, but he's drawn penalties. He has at least scored a goal. He's got that talent on him. I was a little surprised that we never saw him with some of the like top six, and that he never did that role. So obviously they saw something that they had to sit him. Maybe it was some defensive effort. Probably so, especially against that New Jersey game. But that said, I do think they're making a point to give the forwards, those bottom six forwards, a real look headed into the playoffs, because at this point, I'm not sure if anyone could feel really confident knowing that like Huru was going to be on the playoff roster. Obviously, we know the forwards, there are three main forwards out, so three would have to fall out. So you're just off the top of the head, like Bastion, Huru, and like Ernie. Not saying that that's who I would take out, but just generally speaking, like, it's going to be some combination of that. And so Bunting's kind of fighting that battle, because largely I think the bottom six has been pretty good this year. Not necessarily from the scoring aspect, but being consistent, driving the net, being hard to play against, physical. I like what Bastion and Beck bring from like a size standpoint. So definitely going to be paying super close attention to how that bottom six performs and how Dallas is performing in the third period. They're just not really. I feel like that's where these games are lost. When Dallas is cooking, you feel like they're never out of a game, and they sort of showed that in this game. But like, yeah, they're just the energy wasn't there in the third for a team that's down 2-0 and riding a 3-game losing streak. So could be an energy thing. I'd hope not, but I know we touched on last podcast. It could be a just natural, hey, they've clinched. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, let's just get to the upcoming schedule. Obviously, it's a back-to-back with Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. I got a chance to watch that large portion of the Pittsburgh-Ottawa game. Pittsburgh won in a shootout. That Ben Kindle goal, the last shootout goal, do yourself a favor and look that up. That was pretty special. And yeah, like, gotta, unbiasedly say, from what I saw of Stuart Skinner, I thought he played pretty well. I mean, his percentages don't seem to stack up, but he made big saves late in the third to keep Pittsburgh in it. So, and obviously Ottawa's fighting for its playoff lives right now. They've got more wins than Pittsburgh, so it's going to be a dance, as we wind down. But Dallas can't have what they had happen to them last year. 7 straight to end the regular season last year. I don't care what they did in the playoffs after that. That's just a bad vibe. So Dallas has to get it sorted quickly. I do feel like that's the vibe around the team right now. Even like some of the Stars beat writers kind of feeling that same sort of energy. And yeah, it's just never good. Even though like some of the losses have been close. Vegas 1 goal, Minnesota lost in OT, New York lost by a goal, New Jersey was 4-3 late in the second. So yeah, they're close games, but at the end of the day, they're losses. And if you lose like that in the playoffs, you're out. Obviously, it sounds stupid. I'm not here to be Mr. Obvious, but like, you're going to find yourself in the playoffs. Let's look at Minnesota. Like, we know they can defend. We know that they've got great players. And if you find yourself in these close games, be on the other side of it, like, there's still losses just the same. There's no pity points. There's no points for putting your name on the test. So Dallas has to figure it out. I hope you can hear that I'm taking it seriously, because when Dallas is riding high and they weren't like winning those games with like the most dominant fashion, like I'm still feeling like, hey, they're getting wins. It's hard to get wins. I think you're seeing that now. You see that it can be tough, and this schedule is tough. This is a tough road trip. If Dallas could get one of these games against Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, I would be pretty pleased with that because, Boston is humming right now, and that's the end of that trip before they come home. And that first home game after a long road trip is often a trap game. They're playing Winnipeg, so there's the little, not that they're looking forward in the schedule, but there is some light on the horizon. But still, I mean, it's not good for Dallas right now. Like I had mentioned, thankfully they don't have to play Crosby. Seemingly, I would watch out for some tomfoolery from Malkin, and Eric Carlson is still cranking away at that, age of his. And, he was one of the best players against Ottawa the other night. And yeah, he had a terrific game. And so did Raquel. I was really impressed with what he did. And I mean, look, they've got Mantha, they've got Russ, they've got these younger guys. I think, to start the season, a lot of people had written off Pittsburgh. They didn't think they were going to do well, aging core or whatever. Look at them. They're right there in the thick of things. So we know it's going to be a battle. Pittsburgh, the East has been pretty physical and aggressive this year. So I'd probably expect to see a fight in this game. So yeah, we'll see. This is an important game. Dallas has got to stop the skid however they can. Doesn't matter. Winning in a shootout, winning an OT. Yeah, they've got to stop the skid. And I think it's going to start with, honestly, my gut is just they've got to play better in the third. If you play better in the third, you'll have a chance. But I mean, consistently being outplayed in the third is not a recipe for success. So Dallas loses 2-1 to the Islanders. At Patrick Haslip on Twitter, DallasHockeyHangout@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments, want to chat about anything. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a good day. Catch you guys after the Pittsburgh game.